Deepak,
Yes, Bhante.
did you get my email I just sent you?
Just checking. Yes, I just got it. Yes, I got it, Bhante. You want me to share this on screen?
Can you put that on the screen, the photo?
Can. Yeah. Just I can.
Or
Just
send it to Meena also.
Okay, but if she there, I can share. If she can see, then yeah. That's your clock.
So Meena, there's your sitting clock. Mita the cat likes it.
She's not. Yeah, I will share the photo with her, Bhante.
Okay.
So, Ravindra sir. आणि
Yes, sir.
शीतल मॅम पण आहे. शीतल मॅम आणि रवींद्र सर भंतेला शिल्याचना आणि धम्म प्रवचनासाठी याचना तुम्हीच करसाल.
मॅडम सुरू करा.
मॅडम अनम्यूट करतायत की नाही? ठीक आहे
सर, सिंगल आवाज बेटर राहील, डबल आवाज होत नाही व्यवस्थित.
मी बॅकअप करतो, तुम्ही सुरू करा.
Yes, Bhante.
So you want them to request the 3 refuges and the 8
yes
lifetime precepts?
Yes, Bhante. Ravindra sir and Sheetal ma'am, please start kar.
Does somebody know how to do that?
They're doing it now, Bhante.
Yeah.
Please do it.
You're doing it over Zoom.
Yes.
I can't hear them.
Ravindra sir, please start kara.
Okay. Vandami Bhante. First, I will ask for Kshama Yachana. Okas Vandami Bhante Bharatena Katam Sabam Aparadam Kamatume Bhante Ditiyamti Okas Vandami Bhante Bharatena Katam Sabam Aparadam Kamatume Bhante Tatiyamti Okas Vandami Bhante Bharatena Katam Sabam Aparadam Kamatume Bhante. Now I will ask for Ajiv Attamagga Shila. Okas Aham Bhante Ti Saranena Sah Ajiv Attamagga Shila Dhammang Yachami Anugaham Katva Shita Detame Bhante. Dutiyamti Okas Aham Bhante Ti Saranena Sa Ajivattamagga Shila Dhammang Yachami Anugaham Katva Shilang Detame Bhante Tatiyamti Okas Aham Bhante Ti Saranena Sa Sati Ajivattamagga Shila Dhammang Yachami Anugaham Katva Shilang Detame Bhante.
Yamaham Vadami Tamodeta.
Aham Bhante.
And recite Namo Tassa 3 times.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato
Samma
Samma
Sambuddhassa.
Sambuddhassa.
Namo
Namo
tassa
tassa
bhagavato arahato
bhagavato
samma
Samma
sambuddhassa.
Sambuddhassa.
Namo
Namo
tassa
tassa
bhagavato
bhagavato
arahato
arahato
samma
Samma
sambuddhassa.
Sambuddhassa.
Yamaha mudami tamudit
Am bhante
Om
Buddhang saranang gacchami
buddhang saranang
Buddhang saranang
gacchami
Dhammang
gacchami.
saranang gacchami
dhammang saranang
Dhammang saranang
gacchami
gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami
sanghang
Sanghang
saranang
saranang gacchami.
gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi
Tiyampi
buddhang
buddhang
saranam
saranang
gacchami.
gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi
Tiyampi
dhammang
dhammang saranang
saranam.
gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi sanghang saranam
Saranang
gacchami.
gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi buddhang
Tiyampi
saranam
buddhang saranang
gacchami.
gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi dhammang
Tiyampi dhammang
saranam
saranang
gacchami.
gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi sanghang
Tiyampi
saranam
sanghang saranang
gacchami.
gacchami.
Tisarana gamanang sampunnang
Am bhante
Om bhante
Panatipata Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
panatipata
Pātipātā
viramani sikhapadang
Sikhapadang
samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Adinadana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
Adinnadana
Padana
viramani
Vedamani
sikhapadang
Sikhapadang Samadhiyami.
samadhiyami.
Kamesu Michachara Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
Kamesu
Kamesu
michachara
Chācara
viramani
Vedamani
sikhapadang
Sikhapadang
samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Musavada Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
Musavada
Musavada
viramani
Vedamani
sikhapadang
Sikhapadang Samadhiyami.
samadhiyami.
Pisunaya Vachaya Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
Pisuna vacha
Vacha
viramani
Vedamani
sikhapadang
Sikhapadang Samadhiyami.
samadhiyami.
Parusavacha Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
Parusavacha viramani
Vedamani
sikhapadang
Sikhapadang
samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Ampapalapa Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
Samphapalapa
Sampapalapa
viramani
Vedamani
sikhapadang
Sikhapadang Samadhiyami.
samadhiyami.
Mitya Ajiva Chasura Mirya Majjapamadatana Chaveramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami
Michha
Micha
jivacha
Adivacha
surameya majjapamadatthana viramani sikhapadang
Sikhapadang
samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
Tisranena Saddhinga Jiva Tamakasilam Dhammang Samadhiyatva Sadhukang Suratkatang Katva Apamadena sampade tabang
Bhante
Ram Bhante
silena sugating yanti silena boga sampada silena nibbating yanti tasma silam visodaye.
Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu.
So friends, welcome to this special Dhamma talk. And I think you all know who I am. And I would like to thank Deepak and the Dhamma Mangalam Society for inviting me to share some words on the Dhamma and the practice of the Dhamma to all of you, especially at this time of next Wednesday is the Wesak full moon day. So it's good to hear Dhamma talks around the time of Vesak. And I understand that many of you have been meditating very kind of regularly every day or so over the Zoom with Deepak. And that's very good to hear. And because the meditation, of course, is the foundation of all the other practices of the Dhamma. And so the subject of today's Dhamma talk is on the shila, samadhi, and pannya, or the skillful conduct, mental composure, and wisdom. And of these three, the T-sikas, the three higher trainings, comprise all 8 steps of the Arya Astangik Marga, the Noble Eightfold Path. And the Noble Eightfold Path starts with actually pannya. It starts with right understanding and right thought. So that forms the basis of the pannya. And of course, sila, samadhi, and pannya is the normal way that you hear these 3 trainings. But actually, the pannya should come first. Because there are 3 levels of pannya. So it should be pannya, sila, samadhi, pannya, sila, samadhi, pannya, sila, samadhi, and then finally gaining the awakening. So, of course, before we even get into that, we have to understand that, the whole of the Buddhist teaching, the Noble Eightfold Path, sila, samadhi, and pannya, is the 4th of the 4 noble truths. So the first 3 of the noble truths are the noble truth of dukkha satya, the truth of suffering. And there are 3 levels of suffering. There's the suffering of our physical bodies, of getting sickness, diseases, old age, and death. And especially now during the COVID crisis in India, it's very rampant. People are dying. They're running out of wood for cremation. So many people are dying. So, and so much misery is connected with this body. And then there's the sufferings of the mind, the grief, sorrow, lamentation, pain, and despair that comes from ourself or our loved ones encountering the sickness, old age, and death, and other physical problems. So there's physical suffering, mental suffering. And then there's what I call spiritual suffering. That means not understanding the truth. And the mind still dominated by thoughts of I and me and mine, and being still kind of isolated, even though your body and mind might be fairly okay. People are suffering from the ignorance of the truth, and the disconnection from that state of the present moment awareness. So those three levels of suffering: physical suffering, mental suffering, and suffering of ignorance, not knowing the truth, so we get caught up in the law of karma and prolong the cycle of samsara. Then the cause of the suffering is, of course, ignorance and craving. Even though craving is normally cited as the second noble truth, the cause of suffering is tanha. But then you have to ask yourself, what is the cause of tanha? Well, it's ignorance. It's not understanding the truth about the mind, not understanding the truth about the world and how our mind interacts with this physical world. And so that's why that knowledge, that understanding, comes first. It's not understanding the nature of the mind, that we've allowed our mind to get caught up in the web of craving and aversion and karmic entanglements that keep our mind swirling in samsara. And then the third noble truth is that this suffering can be brought to an end and to attain the liberation of the mind from greed, hatred, and delusion. And that is by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path and shila, samadhi, and pannya. Now, so I mentioned that pannya actually should come first. There's three levels of pannya too. We mentioned three levels of suffering. There are three levels of wisdom. And the first one is the intellectual wisdom. So that means you hear Dhamma talks or you read books on the Dhamma and you get some academic or intellectual understanding. And that kind of motivates you to want to practice, because what you read is that craving and ignorance is the cause of suffering, and being conditioned by our habits and our unhealthy habits, and greed, hatred, and delusion is the cause of our individual suffering as well as the collective world of suffering. So you can understand that intellectually, but that motivates you to want to practice. Yeah, I should practice some meditation, and practice shila. So that gets you started, the intellectual wisdom. And then you actually start practicing shila and meditation, samadhi, concentration, and or vipassana meditation. And as you are practicing shila and samadhi, your wisdom gets a little deeper. Now you're directly observing the nature of your mind and how your mind is caught in this web of greed, hatred, and delusion. Delusion means I, me, and mine, basically. And so you're seeing how the mind works on subtler levels. So that's a deeper level of understanding. That's not only intellectual. You're seeing it, from that more calm awareness, and seeing how tightly the mind is clinging to sensual pleasures or pleasant feeling, or having aversion and struggling against painful feelings. And you can see the nature of one's habits and negative thoughts, lust, desire, laziness, egotism, and so on. So you see that more clearly as you start to meditate. So that's called the reflective wisdom, or the wisdom that comes from meditation. And then finally, the deepest level of wisdom is attaining the magga and phala. That means actually attaining, entering the stream and the higher levels of liberation, leading to enlightenment. So those are the three levels of wisdom. So anyway, it starts with the intellectual wisdom. Like in my case, right? I was born here in America. And there was no Dhamma or Buddhism or Dhamma available back in the 1960s much. And I had to travel to India actually in 1970s to really get in contact with the Dhamma and do my first meditation course. So, and there I got that intellectual understanding, and that motivated me to want to practice. Otherwise, had not I heard the Dhamma, I might have just gone on getting caught up in, unhealthy behavior and substance abuses, and could have come to early death. But the Dhamma changed my life. But it was because of hearing it, and that motivated me to practice. And as I practiced and reflected on the Dhamma, reflected on the nature of karma and craving and delusion and the ego, I could, while in meditation, that really got me deeper. I really saw the urgency to want to practice. And that's what eventually led me to becoming a monk, actually. So it was through this gradual development of those levels of wisdom, the intellectual wisdom and the reflective or meditative wisdom. And that's what allows you to see the importance of practicing sila. But normally you don't wait till you have one and then start practicing the other. But so, you've all taken the 8 lifetime precepts. And the reason why I had you take 8 lifetime precepts, because these are the basic silas that a Buddhist should follow, or a meditator who wants to eliminate the effects of suffering from their unskillful actions. So, the 8 lifetime precepts, as they're called, but I like to call them the Eightfold Path precepts, because they're the precepts that you find under right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So that's why they're called the Ajivaka Attamaka Sila. And 4 of them are about speech, because we talk a lot, in the life, and even like slandering and telling tales about others, and harsh speech, calling them names, and even our frivolous, useless speech, which makes our mind a little bit silly and so on. So these all affect our ability to meditate. So that's why so once you get the intellectual wisdom, you start practicing sila, giving up harming other living beings, and the kinds of speech we mentioned, sexual misconduct and so on. So, and as sila is a nice word. It comes from the word to cool, seal, or to cool down. And basically, we're hot under the collar. Our head is on fire with greed, hatred, and delusion. So, and all these negative karmic actions, the akusala kamma. And so, by practicing sila, then our mind becomes more peaceful, because the effects of not practicing sila, breaking the precepts, causes one to have guilt, worry, remorse, and fear, and worrying about looking over your shoulder, who's going to find out I told a lie? Who's going to find out I stole something? Who's going to find out I'm looking at somebody else's husband or wife or girlfriend? Or intoxicating the mind. So the main purpose of sila is to weaken and finally overcome the guilt, worry, remorse, and fear caused by breaking the precepts. And that's where most of the 5 hindrances arise too. So the 5 hindrances are those things: sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry about those things, and doubts. So those what block our ability to meditate. So therefore we have to have mindfulness to apply the right effort, to abandon those urges to break the precepts, to do unskillful behavior, and the effort to to cultivate the wholesome actions and thoughts that we may not have yet, and to make them strong in our mind. So that's concerning, the practice of those of the sila. And we have to keep reminding ourselves, because for most people, practicing sila isn't part of their daily life. Well, maybe some people, of course, maybe a few of the silas, not all of them. But I've been to India, and I've heard how people gossip about others and tell tales about others and so on and so on. So so I know that even Indian people engage in parusa vacha and pisuna vacha and so on. So, but that's common all over the world, right? So anyway, we practice sila, so that when we start practicing samadhi, we will be able to more easily gain concentration. And sila is like having a policeman in your mind, because normally we have to keep reminding ourselves, oh, don't kill that insect, don't tell that lie, don't take this, don't do, because we forget very easily. And our impulses are very deeply rooted in our unconscious mind and nervous system. So we have to keep on reminding ourselves. And so you consciously take the precepts to remind yourself. It's like having a policeman in the back of your mind. Now, I don't know so much about India. People don't obey traffic lights too much in India, from my experience. But here in America, if you run the lights and so on, you get a heavy fine. So, people, when the lights go out, a policeman is directing traffic, people obey the policeman. But when the policeman goes out for lunch and there's no one to direct the traffic or no lights, then everybody just goes their own way. All the rickshaw wallahs and taxi drivers and everybody else is just, cutting in front of people and so on. It's a mayhem in some places, right? So, but when the policeman comes, everybody, kind of obeys the policeman, because they're afraid of having to give a bribe to the policeman or to pay a fine. So they obey. So it's like that. If we don't have the sila, then our mind very easily just gets caught up in its negative actions. So, and it reduces that amount of greed and hatred and delusion also by the practice of the sila. Of course, and if you take the additional silas, like some of you have been taking the uposatha sila, that's when you're doing meditation retreats. You go to the monastery, you practice a little bit more discipline about eating and engaging in the music and show. So all that is also very useful. So as you practice the sila, then the mind gets more calm and centered. And so that's your samadhi gets better. So samadhi is the concentration or the meditation. It's not only meditation, it's the group called sila or shila in your Sanskrit, comprises of the right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Those three parts, steps of the Eightfold Path, are what comprise the samadhi. And the mindfulness comes first. So you've got to be mindful in order to reach concentration. Because we're not mindful, our mind just runs around and gets caught up in so many kind of thoughts, the past and the future, and cannot really gain a deeper level of concentration. And without the right effort, the effort not to indulge in the negative thoughts or other behaviors, that's the effort that we have to exert. That's why that right effort is included in the step of the group of samadhi. And samadhi doesn't just mean concentration also. There's different meanings of concentration, but really it means mental composure. Actually, I like to use the term, instead of concentration, mental composure is a good term to use for samadhi. That means the mind is composed. That means it's overcome the hindrances and it's become resting in the present moment. Actually, concentration means the mind that has stopped going to the past and the future and is anchored to the present moment, using the breathing or the body as an anchor. That's why in the practice of mindfulness, the four foundations of mindfulness, the first part of that is mindfulness of breathing. That helps bring your attention to the body. And then you become aware of the body itself, the four postures, and the various movements. And all that helps to get the mind centered and grounded in the body, because the body is the natural connection to the present moment, the present moment awareness. So the concentrated state means when the mind is resting in the present moment. And you might have an object of that concentration, such as the breathing. But it doesn't have to have one particular object either. It means the mind is resting in the present moment awareness and is not being disturbed by the hindrances. And that's where you can effectively practice the pannya. That's where the pannya really starts to come up. It means the concentration leads to the pannya. But that's the concentrated state. Means the mind free from the hindrances and is tuned in to the present moment and the flow of awareness. And that is where we can effectively then practice the pannya. And so, and this pannya, we're referring to the deeper levels of pannya. So you've already cultivated the intellectual understanding. But with each meditation or with each week or with each month that goes by, if you practice meditation regularly, if you're practicing sila in meditation, then each of those helps to strengthen each other. So that as you practice sila, your mind gets more calm, free from guilt, worry, remorse, and fear. Therefore, you're able to see more deeper in the mind. The samadhi becomes better. The mind becomes like a calm pool of water. And you can see directly into the mind. You can see the subtle movements of your consciousness. You can see the five aggregates more clearly. That's really the development of wisdom, the deeper level of wisdom, the meditative wisdom that comes from the samadhi. So concentration isn't just about, keeping your mind still and experiencing bliss or white light and other things you might have heard about and just kind of space out and, woo, wow, 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 No, it's using that clear mind to develop insight and pannya into the impermanence and suffering nature and non-self nature of the five aggregates. So each time the mind gets more calm, you see more details of the five aggregates. You see more details about impermanence and about conditioning, where you can contemplate paticca samuppada and see the nature of suffering. And as your wisdom gets deeper, that helps you to practice sila even better. You can practice even more silas, or you can practice them on a kind of a higher level. Sometimes people just practice sila on the bare minimum practice. Okay, I won't kill, but I'll go kick the dog, right? Okay. So the practice of, as your wisdom increases, that helps you to practice sila even better. And when you practice sila better, your concentration improves even to deeper levels. Maybe you had first jhana concentration, and as you practice sila, your wisdom and sila grow, you might get the second jhana concentration, then the third jhana concentration, then the fourth jhana concentration, like that. So those three, the pannya, sila, samadhi, keep going around like that, strengthening each other. And that's why the Dhamma is depicted as a wheel, right? Dhamma wheel. So the Noble Eightfold Path, Arya Astangik Marga, is depicted as a 8-spoked Dharma wheel. So, you probably rode bicycles in India, right? In India, so many people ride bicycles. But what happens if your bicycle, some of the spokes on the bicycle are broken or they're weak? They're loose. Right? When you get on the bike and try to ride, the bicycle kind of wobbles. It's not a smooth ride. And if you keep on riding on that, eventually the whole thing might collapse. So all the spokes of the bicycle tire need to be equally tightened so it rolls very smoothly, right? So the same way, all the spokes of the Noble Eightfold Path have to be practiced evenly, and they have to be mutually supporting each other so that our practice of sila, samadhi, and pannya goes smoothly. For a lot of people, their practice is very bumpy, erratic. They practice for a while, then they slack off, and then they practice again for a while, and then they kind of slack off. So it takes a very long time to make progress if your practice is like that. So that's why these the sila, samadhi, and pannya, they help to support each other until finally we can reach the goal of freedom from suffering. Now, the deepest levels of pannya, of course, are reaching the levels of entering the stream, the once returning, never returning, and the arahantship, or the total enlightenment. But that may be very far away for many of you, and it may not even be the ultimate goal for a lot of you, at least right now. But it's about reducing suffering little by little. And most of the suffering in our life comes from not practicing sila, not having a calm and peaceful mind, and always, being caught between pleasure and pain, and noise to, wanting to do something. And the deepest level of pannya is seeing that the sense of I and me is an illusion. Seeing the anatta is the deepest level of pannya. And so, with the practice of sila, samadhi, and pannya, as we mentioned, the concentration, usually people call samadhi concentration, but, sometimes people misunderstand that. And they think it means being totally absorbed in a particular object, like being totally absorbed in some brilliant white light in the mind, or being absorbed in a colored disc, or becoming one with the breathing, and so on. And the mind could do that, but people may get stuck in that. And when you gain concentration, you experience the piti and the sukha. That means you experience this happiness and joy due to the absence of the five hindrances. Because that's the natural state of the mind is the present moment awareness, where the mind is not going to the past or future. And all problems are problems of the past or future. When the mind is resting in the present moment, there's nothing to judge, nothing to compare. And even the sense of ourself comes from measuring and comparing ourself to the things we are experiencing. So when the mind attains samadhi, that means comes to the present moment, then it's resting in that present moment awareness. That is the samadhi. But not to get stuck there. It can be very peaceful. And sometimes people want to just, it feels so good. Oh, piti sukha, yeah, And they don't want to come out of that, Or their mind gets absorbed in a white light and they're just, that's neat, wow. And sometimes people get stuck in that for a long time, And they don't want to come out and then, contemplate, suffering or impermanence. And so that's called a trap of tranquility. So you have to guard yourself about getting caught in this trap of tranquility. And you have to, the main purpose of practicing samadhi is, the Buddha has said, one who is concentrated sees reality as it is. And that reality as it is means that the five aggregates of clinging are constantly changing, and they're a source of suffering if you cling to them, and they're without any ultimate owner or control. Our body and mind has come to be because of the past life karma that seeked out this birth now, and it goes on accumulating more karma in this life until you die. And then it will continue to next lives unless you eliminate or overcome the production or collection of more karmic habits and so on. So anyway, the concentration. Now, so you have to avoid getting caught in that trap of the trap of tranquility, and to come out and then start contemplating impermanence, doing the vipassana, the vidarshana meditation. And some people just practice concentration to get peace of mind. And that's enough for them. Oh, that's enough for me. Oh, yes. 30 minutes of samadhi. Oh, yes. Come peaceful. Then they go out, and then after some hours, then their old mind starts coming back up. So concentration basically is a simile about concentration. It's like if you have a yard of weeds, of course, in India, most people have weeds growing all over the place. But here in America, everybody, their lawns and everything are very nicely cut, and everything looks like a postcard. Not everywhere, but so they hire somebody to come and cut their grass every 2 weeks. And then after a few days after they cut it, everything looks very nice. But then when it rains and the sun shines, the weeds start growing up again. And then they have to come and cut the weeds again. That's because the roots are still there. So practicing samadhi just to calm your mind is like we pull the weeds of the 5 hindrances, and then the mind becomes peace through the practice of concentration. The mind becomes peaceful for a while. But when we give up, come out of the concentration, we have to go back in the world and interact with people, then we might lose our awareness and break some shila, and the old conditioning comes back up. So the practice of concentration is not enough. Well, even the practice of sila is not enough. Some people just want to practice sila and then not to practice concentration. But usually they don't succeed, because without concentration, it's very difficult to maintain a high level of sila practice. So the practice of concentration alone, without developing wisdom, is not enough. So the practice of sila is not enough to eliminate suffering. It can eliminate some physical sufferings. So sila helps to work on the physical sufferings. That means if you don't go out and steal, rob, cheat, kill others, then people won't come looking to whip you and beat you or kill you or something. So you reduce some of the physical suffering that you have. And you practice samadhi, that reduces some of the mental suffering. When you enter samadhi, and temporarily your worry and fears and anxieties are subsided. But then they come up again. So it's only because of the wisdom. The practice of sila and samadhi is for the purpose of developing wisdom, in order to attain the deepest level of liberation from suffering. And I like to give the analogy of the difference between concentration and vipassana. So when we talk about wisdom in terms of a meditation practice, it means developing the vipassana meditation, and in order to help to reach the levels of entering the stream and above. So I don't know, in India, in America, there's this little toy, a children's toy called a Jack in the Box. So it's a tin box, and there's the head of a clown or the devil on a spring. And so the head is pushed down into the box. And the spring, coiled spring, it's compressed. But then the head goes into the box. The head symbolizes greed, hatred, and delusion. The head symbolizes me, look at me, I, me, mine, and all of its delusions. So when you practice samadhi, it's like you push the head down into the box and put the lid on. So as long as the lid is on the box, as long as we're still maintaining a jhana level of concentration, the head doesn't come up. That means the 5 hindrances. But when we come out of meditation, when you take the lid off the box, boing, the head pops up very powerfully because of the compressed spring that was underneath. The compressed spring underneath is the repressed greed, hatred, and delusion that we just pushed down. So whenever you come out of the meditation, you feel pretty good for a while, but as you get caught up doing things, the old habits come back. So And that will continue indefinitely until one starts developing wisdom, and especially until one attains at least the first stage of entering the stream. So in practicing vipassana meditation, it's like taking a pair of wire cutters, right? And you go down into the box and you cut the spring just 25%, 25%. You cut through the wire. So next time the head comes up, it only comes up with 75% of its previous power. And then you go on practicing sila, samadhi, and pannya until you get another glimpse of the deathless state. And that's like cutting another 25% of the spring away. And then the next time when you come out of meditation, the head comes up with only 50% of its previous power. And then you go on practicing sila, samadhi, and pannya until you get that glimpse of enlightenment again. And reach the third stage, it's like cutting another 25% of the wire away. And then the next time that you come out of meditation, the head comes up, greed, hatred, and delusion, it comes up with only 1/4 or 25% of its previous power. And then finally, when you attain the state of the arahant or full enlightenment, it's like cutting the last 25% of the spring wire in half. And when you take the lid off the box, the head doesn't come back up because there's no more greed, hatred, and delusion. So that is done through the power of the vipassana insight and developing the insight into anicca, dukkha, and anatta, the insight into impermanence and the nature of suffering, and especially the anatta, understanding that the sense of I, me, and mine that we have in our consciousness is essentially an illusion that's created within the mind because of ignorance and because of our continued involvement in accumulating karma that keeps the sense of the ego as self strong. So finally that is overcome, and that is the end of the suffering, or the end of the practice of the path. So that is how the Noble Eightfold Path and the groups of Sila, Samadhi, and Pannya work together to overcome the many, many, many lifetimes of accumulated karma that we have accumulated. And it's a very long process, and for most of you, it will take your whole lifetime or even longer to eventually reach those levels. Not everybody, of course, people are different. But I just wanted to explain this practice so that especially the difference between just samadhi and the pannya is very important to understand. Not to get stuck or trapped in the bliss of just feeling good, but without going on to develop the deeper levels of pannya. Now, I want to give a little bit of time. If there's any questions that might have come up in the chat, I don't know. Deepak, can you help me out? Is there any questions in the chat box?
Yes, Bhante. कुणाला प्रश्न असतील तर त्यांनी विचारावे.
Or if somebody wants to just ask a question, they can ask you the question in their own language, and you can translate it to me in English, and I can give a reply, perhaps.
कुणाला प्रश्न आहेत का? पण ते Bhante Anand is here. So if you allow, I can unmute.
Where is Venerable Ananda?
See.
Come, Venerable Ananda. It's been a long time since I've seen Venerable Ananda.
Hello.
Ananda ji.
हाँ Bhante, Vandami. I'm so happy to listen to you after so long a time.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
well,
Thank you very
every
much.
week I'm on Zoom. You should tune into my Zoom programs every Wednesday and Sunday,
Sir, I'm so grateful to you. I'm so very grateful to you and grateful to Deepak also. Hopefully you are listening to me. Are you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm really, really, really very, very, very happy today, this evening, seeing you and talking to you and hearing the Dhamma in such a wonderful way after 2.5 years.
Yeah, and now, with the problem in India, I don't know when I would ever come back to India now. So many problems.
We would love to see you very quickly, maybe after about 3-4 months, if possible.
I doubt it, not that soon.
Okay. I
But
must
anyway,
thank
but we'll
Deepak
see. We'll
also.
see.
I must thank Deepak also because he told me that you are there appearing on, and then I was so very happy.
Well, I asked him
Thanks
to
to him
contact
again
you because
to
you may
connect me
not
to
have
you to
known
talk
about
to.
today's program.
Yes, Bhante?
Yeah. So tell all of your family members, give them my greetings and
Yes, Bhante. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Vandami.
yes. May the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Deepak.
Okay, Bhante. Okay.
Oh.
हॅलो
हाँ मैं
सर, आवाज
विचारा.
येतोय?
हाँ yes विचारा.
वंदा मी म्हणते सर, त्यांना माझा प्रश्न आहे की जेव्हा आनापानाचं ऑब्जेक्ट असते माइंडफुलनेस साठी श्वासावर लक्ष केंद्रित करणं, तर तो ऑब्जेक्ट माझा कुठेतरी मग लक्ष राहत नाही माझं, पण मेत्ता वगैरे असली किंवा मरणानुस्मृती असली तेव्हा माइंडफुलनेसचा ऑब्जेक्ट असते माझा व्यवस्थित, पण आनापान वेळेस समथिंग काहीतरी प्रॉब्लेम होते, तर काय करावं?
Bhante, in our schedule, in our program, I giving them when we doing anapanasati for the full day for the mindfulness object, we give focus on breathing, like 1 minute in hour or 20 or 25 breathe or like that. So this lady saying that she not able to aware with the breathing in a daytime while she working as a mindfulness, but she is good with metta lines and Marnanusmriti. So why it happening? Because why such thing happening? She is not aware with the breathing in the daytime also.
Because the breathing is very subtle. Even the Buddha himself said that mindfulness of breathing is not easy for beginners. And especially if you're trying to focus your attention to feel the subtle air in the nostrils. It's very difficult, especially in the daytime when you're busy doing things. You may stop for a minute, but then it's difficult to regain the focus. So I recommend just using the body itself, the posture of the body. You stop every hour and just feel your feet pressing the ground. That's a very strong sensation, all the weight of your body pressing the feet on the ground, or just feel the shape of the body, feel the clothing touching the skin. Or take a few deep breaths. At least that will help you to recenter your attention in the present moment. But don't worry about trying to, feel the breathing like that, because as you experience, it's not easy to do, especially in the daily life. Maybe when you're on a long retreat, you can reach this kind of levels, but not usually in the daily life. So that's why I usually recommend people just to focus on, to stop every hour. It's called an M&M, a minute of mindfulness. Every hour you stop what you're doing and bring your attention to the body in the present moment, and take a couple of deep, slow breaths and just tell yourself, breathing in, standing, breathing out, standing, breathing in, standing, and just letting go of the past and future. And you do that for 1 minute and you can regain your center that way, and you can then be refreshed. It's like a little mini battery charge. But, but the body is easier to feel than the breathing, because the body, of course, and then the sensations that are in the body, the various sensations. So try using the body and not so much the breathing for these during the daytime when you're practicing the M&Ms.
Oh, okay, Bhante. I will translate her after, Bhante.
Okay.
मॅम मी तुम्हाला नंतर सांगेल. ओके, अनम्यूट करा प्लीज.
I'm sorry, I talked too long and then I didn't realize you wanted to translate.
अनम्यूट करा प्लीज. Yes.
Vandami Bhante ji, this is Jyoti here. I would like to really extend my gratitude for giving wonderful desana today. And of course, I'm thankful to Mr. Deepak and his team as well. So my question here, when you talk about the Anapana and Vipassana, so both are very important to develop the Samadhi. But which is the midpoint where you have to realize that after Anapana, where we have to stop and we really have to focus on Vipassana. Because this is something really interesting, just to know that, yes, which is a standpoint where I can really decide on when I have to initiate my Vipassana, over a period of practice. So can you just give me a guidance on that? Thank you so much.
Well, when you're practicing Anapana, once the mind gets fairly calm and the hindrances are no longer very strong, you might have some wandering thoughts, but the mind will become like a mirror. And it will become very clear and tranquil. That's the time to start practicing Vipassana, when you can easily see different sensations kind of just coming and going, like a mirror, things going across a mirror. Our mind is like a mirror in samadhi. And it's like, polishing a mirror more and more. And you see more and more. So when you experience that tranquility and the mind becomes quite clear and you're relaxed in the body, that's the time not to get stuck in the samadhi, but then focus, open up and try to feel see how quickly your thoughts come and go. See how quickly different sensations come and go, or the urges to want to move from physical pain. You start examining and observing these, the aggregates.
Thank you very much, Bhante, for your guidance. Thank you so much. Vandami Bhante ji.
अनम्यूट करा. अनम्यूट करा रेखा गायकवाड.
Vandami Bhante ji, wonderful desana, but I can't speak in English clearly. I speak in Marathi. Okay, sir?
Okay.
Well, I can't speak Marathi, so.
Yeah. सर, मला ध्यान करताना म्हणजे जवळजवळ 1 महिना होऊन गेला सर. तर जी मनामध्ये म्हणजे ध्यान करताना कधी 1.5 तास होऊन जातो आणि जो प्रकाश आहे जिथे मी इतकी रममाण होते की त्याच्यामध्ये फक्त आणि फक्त म्हणजे प्रीती, सुख आणि जो आनंद जो मिळतो तो अविस्मरणीय आहे आणि तो मला शब्दात व्यक्त करता येत नाही. तर त्याला म्हणजे काय म्हणायचं आणि कसं पुढे अजून हे करायचं तेवढं मला विचारायचं.
तुमचा प्रश्न काय आहे समजला नाही.
म्हणजे मला सेकंड ध्यानाची जी प्रॅक्टिस सांगितलेली भंतेजीनी नॅन्सरी, आणि सर तुम्ही मला 3 दिवस सांगितलं हे सेशन करायला, तर मी 1.5 तास रोज करत आहे. तुम्ही 3 वेळा मला सांगितलं सर, तर मग आज म्हणून मी प्रश्न करत आहे सरांना, भंतेजींना.
प्रश्न काय की तुम्ही याच्यामध्ये अटकले आहात असं विचारायचं आहे का?
नाही,
मग
म्हणजे तीच प्रॅक्टिस करू का असं मी म्हणत आहे.
okay. Bhante, this lady getting meditation instruction from Venerable Bhante Jnanasiri, and this lady practicing second jhana. So this lady asking that she experiencing Priti Sukh Ekagrata. So what she have to do after this?
Well, that's what I explained to the previous person. Don't get stuck in the piti and sukha. You have to then start noticing other sensations. Come out of that deeper samadhi a little bit and be aware of the body. Feel the body and be aware of the six senses, what is coming through. Particularly just try to notice other body sensations, little aches and pains. See, the samadhi suppresses that. And so when you gain a deep level of samadhi, you can't feel the pains, but that's a false thing because you can't live in samadhi all the time. And so when we come out, we don't know how to deal with the pain. It's like taking a tranquilizer, So you have to not to get stuck too deep in a samadhi, but come out and use that awareness and to observe how quickly the sensations come and go, and to endure pain longer and develop that equanimity. You don't want to lose contact with the world because that's when you can't deal with the world when you go out from meditation anymore, if you attain samadhi too much without the vipassana.
Okay. मॅम मी तुम्हाला समजून सांगतो थोड्या वेळानं. Okay.
वंदा मी भंतेजी.
Yes.
Deepak, I have to
Yeah.
go now to some other people are coming here. So,
Okay. There is a few more hand raised, so no problem.
You answer them.
No, Bhante, you are the guest here. So, Bhanteंना जायचं आहे, तर प्लीज आपण प्रश्न उत्तर थांबवत आहोत. रवींद्र सर, Bhanteंना पुण्यानुमोदनची रिक्वेस्ट करायची का?
हा, त्यांना वेळ असेल तर.
Bhante, it's okay, we can stop the session now, but
Well,
before
I saw that one question. It said, what are the six senses? The six senses are the eye, ear, nose, tongue,
Yes.
skin, and the mind. Those are the six senses.
Yes. Yeah, many questions, Bhante. But
Yeah, but this could go on for hours, And
okay.
as I mentioned, some other people are coming to see me now, and so
Ravindra sir.
maybe another time.
Bhante asking for blessings.
Okay, I'm just going to chant a short blessing for all of you. Hold
Yes,
your
Bhante.
hands like this.
Please.
Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata Sabba Sangha Nubhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te.
Sadhu.
You can all chant sadhu 3 times slowly. Sadhu. 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 And don't forget, mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away.
Away. Thank you, Bhante.
Namo
you.
Buddhaya.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Yeah.